Hello! It is Tuesday. Tuesday, March 31st. I hope it's March 31st because I keep telling people it's March 31st. And hello, friends. Please tell me it's March 31st, Abby and Grace, because I keep telling people it's March 31st and I just need to make sure that that's not wrong. Hi, friends. Hello, 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 hello. Thank you, Abby. I appreciate that. That's great news. Yikes. Alright. We have a long-ish chapter today. Hey, Joe, what's going on? We have Nora today. Any of you who missed Curtis yesterday, if you missed the live stream and you didn't catch up on the video, I strongly recommend it. Curtis is one of my favorite characters. And also, if there's like a weird, loud water noise at some point, it's because my dishwasher's on and it drains into the sink. So now you know what's happening. So, today our character is Nora. And, well, I'm not really sure what to say about this one, except that by this point in the story, we are getting more to what's going on with the garden itself. So starting with Sam a little bit. Sam talked about the way the garden was separated from between all the people. And then who else? Say Young talked about the garden a little bit more. When we see in Nora's chapter, we'll hear even more about how the garden is being received by people and how it's seen in the community, because when a lot goes from being empty with tons of trash in it to being a beautiful flourishing garden, people will notice that. And so Nora will make a comment on it. Nora's little picture in the corner there is just some pretty flowers. Alrighty. Okay, so I'm going to get started. Reminder, if you wanted to follow along with your eyes on the book, there's a copy of the Seedfolks text in Classroom. It's in the remote learning folder in the classwork stream, right? So if you tab over to the classwork stream, go to the remote learning folder, which should be the top one. All the way at the bottom, the first assignment in there is the Seedfolks text. I always try to get Mr. Miles out for a walk and a taste of fresh air. I don't know about his other nurses. I expect that it's because I'm British. Back in England, you'd see mothers pushing infants in prams through winter gales. Gales are winds. I expect as well it was the sight of my own father vegetating in his chair by the fire. We mustn't stop living before our time. So I'm forever telling Mr. Miles. It was a midsummer morning, and I was pushing his wheelchair up Gibb Street, a new route for us. So in this first paragraph, Nora has established her relationship with Mr. Miles. If you think you know, who she is to him, just drop that in the comment box. The view, I'll admit, is less than uplifting. Half the storefronts seem to be empty. Mr. Miles must remember a very different scene. His landlady says he's lived here many years. As he lost his speech with his second stroke, he can't tell me himself. He's a mystery. Lately, his interest in the world has declined. I'd stop before a store window to let him see himself. He has the dignified head of an African chief. Only to find that he'd fallen asleep. I realized that his time might be near. And then, that morning, rolling along the sidewalk, suddenly, his arm came up. So Nora is Mr. Miles' nurse, so she's somebody who takes care of him because he can't take care of himself. So that's who she is to him. And, oh, good, there it is, Vince. She's his guardian, he lives in an old folks home. Yeah, exactly. So she takes care of him. Good. And I don't know if this changes things, but I've come to infer over the years that Mr. Miles is, black, which is why she says that he has the dignified head of an African chief, but Nora is not black. Just some info from our inferences. He wanted to stop. I obliged him at once. To our left was a lot in which a few bold pioneers had planted gardens. We remained several minutes watching two Asian women raking, then continued on. Immediately, back up went his arm. So she was just saying in the previous paragraph, his interest in the world had declined lately. And now all of a sudden, he's like, no, like, let's go in here. It seems like he's unable to talk, but he can, like, move the major parts of his body. He wanted to stop. I obliged him at once. To our left was a lot in which a few bold pioneers had planted gardens. We remained several minutes, watching two Asian women. Immediately back up went his arm. I came around and looked at him. He twisted and pointed toward the garden. I turned the wheelchair and headed back. I could see his nostrils taking in the smell of the soil. We reached the lot. His arm commanded me to enter. Over the narrow, bumpy path we went, his eyes and nose working. Some remembered scent was pulling him. He was a salmon traveling upstream through his past. That is a metaphor for you folks. So simile is a comparison that uses like or as, but a metaphor sets two things equal to each other. It just uses is usually. So here she's saying that Mr. Miles is like a no, because like would be a simile. Mr. Miles is, but he's not really. Mr. Miles is a salmon traveling upstream through his past. So it's comparing these two things. That first day, we simply watched the others. We might have been strolling through a miniature city. Some plots sported brick pathways and flower borders, while others looked haphazard. One had a gate that was, in fact, a car door. Within, beans climbed a propped-up set of bed springs. A hummingbird feeder, a barbecue grill, a gardening hat hanging from a nail. There were many such domestic touches. I was entranced. I determined that Mr. Miles should do more than simply watch, wheelchair or no. I worked on the problem in my head. If you've ever been in a community garden, usually they're not like well paved in between the plots. They maybe have gravel or dirt, but that would make it hard for a wheelchair to get through. So that's kind of what she's thinking about here. I worked on the problem in my head. 2 days later, driving to his apartment, I stopped at the garden and unloaded a large plastic trash barrel and a shovel. I wheeled him up an hour later, used my pocket knife to cut holes in the bottom of the barrel for drainage, and built up a fine sweat, shoveling in dirt. I brought with me a dozen seed packets. Mr. Miles chose the flowers decisively, ignoring the vegetables. Was he recalling his mother's flower garden? His history was unknowable. I pushed him as close to the barrel as I could. 30 minutes later, he had planted hollyhocks, poppies, and snapdragons. Riding home afterward, he smelled the dirt on his fingers with satisfaction. So how does Nora solve this problem for him? He can't get out of his wheelchair and get on the ground, so what does she do to solve that problem? How does she bring the ground to him? I'm gonna take a sip of my tea while you all furiously answer my question about how she brings the garden to him. I love tea. I'm gonna continue on for the next paragraph, and then I'll go back and discuss that. That small circle of earth became a second home to us both. Gardening boring? Never! It has suspense, tragedy, startling developments, a soap opera growing out of the ground. I had forgotten that tremolo of expectation produced by a tiny forest of sprouts. What a marvelous sight it was to behold Mr. Miles' furrowed black face inspecting his smooth-skinned young, just arrived in the world he would shortly leave. No, he does not die in this chapter, I don't think. But he is old. His eyes gained back some of their life. He weeded and watered with great concentration. A fact bobbed up from my memory that the ancient Egyptians prescribed walking through a garden as a cure for the mad. It was a mind-altering drug we took daily. Okay, so how does Nora bring the garden up to Mr. Miles so that he can garden without having to be on the ground? She makes a planter, she kind of scoops it. Yeah, so she gets the trash can, she scoops the dirt into it, and Yeah, a large plastic trash barrel. And that raises the level of the ground. So now he can plant, like, here. He doesn't have to bend over. Joe, what did I say that was funny? Planter? Trash can? Okay. Well, you'll have to clue me in. Okay, I'm going to continue. Joe's laughing at me in the comments for those of you who are watching this on YouTube later or on IG later. Which is much like class. Okay, continuing on. We were rather alone there, off to one side. Our most common visitors were the cats. They were attracted by the aroma of fish, the work of a child who had copied the pilgrims of old and buried sardines with her seeds. Then our solitary status ended, as a result of a downpour. When the rain came that day, the other gardeners all ran in the same direction, as if in a fire drill. We followed and found them sheltered beneath a shoe store's overhang 2 doors down, apparently their customary refuge. The small dry space forced us together. In 15 minutes, we'd met them all and soon knew the whole band of regulars. Most were old. Many grew plants from their native lands. Huge Chinese melons, ginger, cilantro, a green the Jamaicans call callaloo, and many more. Pantomime, like charades, like miming with your hands, was often required to get over language barriers. Yet we were all subject to the same weather and pests, the same neighborhood, and the same parental emotions toward our plants. If we happened to miss 2 or 3 days, people stopped by on our return to ask about Mr. Miles' health. We, like our seeds, were now planted in the garden. So, especially for Say Young, but also for Mr. Miles, this garden is bringing more than just plants. What else is it bringing back into their life? Now, remember, Say Young loved the garden because it helped her be around people after she was scared to be around people after her store being robbed. So what is it that this garden is bringing people? In addition to letting them grow plants. Joe Sullivan, that better have been an accident. It's okay if it's not. As long as you're laughing, I'm happy. So this garden also brings what? I'm going to finish it up and then we'll go back and discuss that. I told all this to out-of-town guests, then took them up Terminal Tower. We got off at the observation deck on the 42nd floor to find that the garden, which loomed so large to its tenders, the people who tend it, was hopelessly hidden from view by buildings. I looked at all the tourists who had no notion it existed, who thought they were seeing all of Cleveland, and restrained myself from pointing and shouting out, "The Gibb Street Garden is there." It's really taking off, and we have, 2 or 3 more chapters? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, of course. Oh, there goes the dishwasher. Okay. It's just like school, guys, where there are interruptions that I'm not in charge of. So I asked, what does the garden bring to these people in addition to plants? And your answers are incredible. None of them are the answer I was looking for, but they are all accurate and right and awesome. So we have hope. It brings hope to the people. Absolutely. I love that. It's so true. It brings happiness to the people. Yes, again, completely true. And it brings life back to this part of town. Yes. Nice. I was thinking of community. I feel like this book is about building community. In a lot of the chapters, we see people helping other people. So if you think back on some of the other chapters, so even Curtis, for example, Curtis helps. How does Curtis help somebody else? Who does he hire? Who else? We have Virgil. Virgil is helping his dad. Sam hires people and he starts that contest. Good, Vince. Yeah, that's right. Community. Leona is the first one to really get this going for everyone. by forcing the city to take it seriously. So this book is all about building community and the importance of building community. That's what you were going to say. Okay, other thoughts, comments about this book before I let you know what it will be tomorrow. Give you a little preview of that. Tomorrow's chapter is pretty interesting. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I went back to Curtis by accident. Anything else? Questions? Comments? Drink some more tea. It's a pretty low-key chapter. Nothing too intense. It's just another out-of-towner, though. We have a lot of immigrants who are participating in this garden, which is always good. Alrighty, unless you have typed something and I haven't gotten it, I'm going to wrap this up. Oh, I'm going to tell you about Marcella. So Marcella is tomorrow's chapter. This is her. It's pretty interesting. I'm not really sure how to tease this without giving it away. But it's a good one. She's another character that I really admire and really like Leona. So we'll see her tomorrow. Yes, Miss Ansley is doing a Ziploc garden. Yes, finally. I asked her to do that for me with me back when I started Seedfolks, but she was having trouble, because she has a million 6th grade students or whatever. She was having trouble getting it put together. So if you have not rejoined Miss Ansley's classroom, because most of you are Emerald students who have already had her, then you can go ahead and rejoin the classroom. I think she reopened it. And if you are one of Miss Ansley's students from trimester 2 or 3, you should pop on and see what she's doing. She is going to go more into the detail of how you can snag seeds from your refrigerator, like seeds you may already have that you can grow. And I don't know, any of that stuff. I will post a picture later today, hopefully. My plan, or tomorrow. I planted my peas yesterday, so I'll post a little baby picture of them where they're at today, and you can follow those with me. But there's nothing like growing your own garden. Sometimes my plants don't even make it, but just like growing them into plants, sometimes I just end up giving them to my mom. Sometimes just growing them into plants is like really rewarding anyway. Natalia said, why did the author choose mostly immigrants to be farmers? That is a great question. Natalia, you ask the best questions. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what you think, Natalia. I think to some extent Paul Fleischman meant this book to be a celebration of like American culture where everyone comes together to create a new thing. It's kind of what the garden is, right? Everyone comes together to create a new thing. And so I think it was important to him to represent lots of different types of characters because that's what America is, a combination of lots of different types of people. But I would be interested to hear if you agree or disagree. But Natalia, you'll have to leave it in a comment once I post this because I'm going to wrap it up. My friends, it was lovely to see you. Seedfolks will be ending on Friday. That will be our last Seedfolks day. But I will probably continue with the live streams the week after with something else. So just so you know. I hope you have a lovely day. Go check Classroom. My assignment is up on Classroom, including another video of my beautiful face. And let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. I will be working on getting this posted here and on Classroom. Have a fabulous Tuesday, and I will see you later. Bye.